Hey there, Variety here. Welcome to today's video in which we're going to be doing a level 1 to level 50 gathering guide for Brighter Shores. So the gathering skill is going to be called Gatherer, although I'm always going to refer to Gathering. So Gatherer is going to be unlocked when you reach Zone 2 in Brighter Shores, which for most people will probably be for day 1 or day 2. So you unlock this skill relatively quickly. This skill is a supporting skill and a gathering skill that primarily supports two other skills. The gather skill will feed into your alchemist, which is used to make potions, and it also feeds into your bonewright. The way that it feeds into your alchemist is that it gets items like this, which uses these ingredients to make your potions and to level up. The way that it feeds into your bone making, which may seem a little bit weird, is that when you're doing gather, you're going to get bones. So yellow wing ram horn, bone spike, goat horn. As you can see down here, these are the items that I've collected so far. These are all the horns that I can currently access, and these are the gather raw materials for the alchemist skill. So the way that you're actually going to train this skill will be determined on why you're training it, right? So let's go over why. Why are you training this skill? If you are intending to farm these materials and sell them, I strongly recommend you do not. Unfortunately, I can't show you in that shop as I don't want anything to do with the items that I have. However, the items, for example, these here, if you try to sell them to a store, you'll get like 300 copper. Now, if you try to buy them from a store, it's going to be like 1.5 silver. So when trading is available, people will trade them for less than what the store sells them, but more than what you can get for selling them to the store. So it'll probably be, like 1 silver instead of 1.5. So if you're intending to do this skill to sell materials to a store to get silver, I strongly recommend you don't. I recommend you doing this class, either you're leveling up your total level or you're leveling it as a supporting skill. As I mentioned earlier, it will support your alchemy or it will support your bonewright. So as you can tell, my alchemy is a lot lower level and I do know how it works, but I have a much more intimate knowledge with bonewright. So this guide will lean a little bit more on collecting with bonewright, but it will focus primarily on gathering, of course. Okay, so let's go and have a look at the gathering skill. So the first thing you're going to want to know for gathering is in zone 2, up to the left of the main town, is going to be the store that's going to sell you the tools required to do the skill. So let's run over here and have a look at the store real quick. So this is where your 2 tools are. It's going to cost you 43 silver and 122 silver for this one. As I mentioned in another video, if you go over here to the enchant shop, which is in zone 1, you can enchant your items. So I enchanted my hand rake to level 5, which I believe is giving me like an extra 2% XP. Yes, 2% XP. The reason I did the rake is because the rake is used to gather bones. And since I was primarily gathering bones because I was focused on bonewright, I decided to put 5 levels into hand rake. I really want to note that this is quite expensive, and if you're early on in the game, I recommend you do not do this. This is more later when you have gold and have skills above level 50 to support, some kind of financial gain. Okay, so let's have a look at the menu. I think it's important that you understand how this works. These 3 I can't get for some reason. I think it's bugged. But generally, you want to collect everything one time. You want these cards to be lit up for a couple of reasons. Primarily, so you can get XP when you first collect them. The secondary reason is when you click on them, it gives you information on it, right? As you can see, extra information in here. Unfortunately, it doesn't show you enough information. So for example, if I click on a bone, so this is something I collected in the gathering skill. You can see here, it takes a level 18 to gather it. But what does the bone do? So it tells you here, but what does it mean down here? So what this is telling you is that it can be used in bonewright from level 0 bonewright, right? And the maximum item it can create in the bonewright skill is level 71. So if you're trying to create items over level 71, this item will no longer work. It also kind of works in the other way. So this, for example, here's the ram's horn, the sturdy ram's horn. It can only be used from level 102 to 163. So you can't actually go back and create, say, level 20 weapons with this. It doesn't let you. So when you're collecting your items for whichever skills that you are raising, whether it be alchemy or bonewright, make sure you're collecting for whatever it is that you're crafting. So if you just click on here, you can easily find what you're looking for. So I'm not going to go into each of the zones and say collect here or there because it's based upon what you want to achieve. But unless you're collecting for something, I generally wouldn't do it. Like, always have a reason to be collecting. Don't just collect to level up. But if you click here, for example, it takes you straight there. It's pretty straightforward, right? And obviously, the higher the level, the more XP. So I always gather what you need for your skill. And try not to gather things too low leveled. So a problem I had is, see how this is level 12 and this is level 18? There's only a 6 level difference, right? It's not too bad. But when you come down here, this is level 66, the bone, and the next bone is level 79. So if you're only into bonewright and you only collect bone spikes, that's going to take you a whopping 13 levels. Which means that the XP you're getting for collecting these is gone down a lot, right? So it gets very difficult to get up to 79. I did bones regardless because I needed the bones for bonewright. But if you have enough materials, make sure that you go after the highest level one. For example, instead of doing bone spikes all the way to 79, when you get to 76, do bitter fruit to get to 79 because the XP is quite a bit faster. Okay, so once you've decided on what materials you're going to go get, you go collect the materials and put them in your bank. I probably should have mentioned this earlier in the video, but if you open up the map, you're going to see storage rifts, okay? These storage rifts are the things from the spider quest and require 32 carpentry. And honestly, if you're gathering, you should have this unlocked first. You shouldn't be gathering over like level 10 without these, because what they are is that they're portable banks, right? So instead of having to teleport all the way down here to deposit and stuff like that, you can just run to a nearby teleporter. And there are quite a few of them. So there's one here, there's one over here. I believe there's one down to the right somewhere. But there's actually quite a few of them on the map, so make sure that you use those efficiently. So as I mentioned before, what you're gathering with this skill will be determined by whatever skill it is you're supporting. So right now, we're going to go and have a look at the withdrawal points. So the rift stones that you're looking at before, those will teleport your items away. If you've done alchemy items, they will teleport over here and you can withdraw them from the potion regions bank. So your stuff is going to be located in here. As you can see, I don't really have a lot of these because my stuff is primarily a bone related. So I'm located in the first town in the potion store. So let's go and have a look at the bone location. Okay, so right now we're in the third zone. We're at the bone bank, which is located down the bottom left of the third zone. This is where you're going to be doing your bonewright, and your bones are going to be primarily stored in here. So you can store them in a couple different locations. There's like, I believe there's 1 or 2 bone specific banks in the forest that you could potentially use. However, when you're going to withdraw them and use them, it's primarily going to be here. So there's something that I want to talk about that's actually kind of important. So when you're raising your secondary skill, so let's say bonewright, you're probably putting your knowledge points into it. And what happens is if you're gathering all of your own materials and using them on your skill and using your KP points, which is your knowledge points on your skill is going to continuously get ahead of your gathering skill. Your gathering skill will level up fast. It is actually pretty good. But if you use all of your knowledge points on your crafting skill, it will always say be 10 or 15 levels ahead of your gathering skill. And what's going to happen is that you're going to collect materials that are no longer relevant because your crafting skill has gotten too far ahead. Now, if you do that, this is what's going to happen. So as you can see, I have 1,800 bones here that are just sitting there, and I can't really do much with them. And there's another 800 here and another 400. Can I use them to craft stuff a little bit later on? Sure. But for the leveling process, they become inefficient or just not good to use because my level had already gone up. So when you're leveling your secondary skill on top of your gathering, really think about where you're putting your KP points. I'd also like to mention that I strongly do not recommend putting your KP points into your gathering skill because your gathering skill levels up much faster than your crafting skill. The reason I'm bringing up crafting so much is because I strongly want to emphasize that this skill is a support skill for either alchemy or bonewright. It is not a skill in which you collect materials and sell to a store. Please don't do that. So a little bit earlier in the video, I talked about the tools. So now we're going to use the tools and I'm going to explain why I leveled one of them up. So when you go to gather, you have two different tools, okay? One's a sickle and the one's a hand rake. The sickle is used to gather materials used in alchemy. The hand rake is using items like bones. So for example, this is my favorite area while collecting. The reason this area is good is because you have 4 nodes in here and 4 nodes in here. And you can start from here, run all the way around, come back, and they'll start respawning again. So here are some bones. You just easily collect them. And as you can see, it takes a couple of seconds. I really want to note this. If you go into settings and go down to controls and change your first action to whatever click it is you want, instead of having to right click like this, you can just click on it and you'll run over and collect it. And actually, they put this in when I was already above level 50, so a little bit annoying, but nonetheless, it was a very helpful update. So you're going to be running around and collecting with hopefully your correct click on your mouse, and you're going to have materials. So then you're going to have 1 or 2 choices. You either teleport all the way home by using the teleport and go to home port, drop off your materials to the alchemy store that I showed you earlier, and then come back, or you get the 32 carpenter, do the spider quest and get the storage rift, and you can open up the storage rift and just deposit these like this. I would be able to deposit all these in one shot if it was the same item. They're different items, that's why it's not offering me to do that. And boom, you're able to deposit your items. Keep in mind though, as you just saw, not all items are depositable in all areas. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I feel like that's everything you need to know for the gather skill in Brighter Shores. If you have any questions, do let me know below. Until next time.